Did you know that many people in the United States consider this day to be the second Independence Day in the United States, June 19th, also known as and more commonly known as Juneteenth? But not everyone thinks that it should be celebrated, and many people don't even know that it exists. Juneteenth, June 19th, is a very important day because in the year 1865, it was the official day that slavery ended in the United States. As many of you already know, the United States, at the birth of it, when the United States became a country, relied on slavery, especially in the southern states, to help grow and pick cotton, grow and harvest tobacco and other crops. They used slaves as manual labor on plantations and farms across the southern states. They used them in the North as well, but the North, before the South, decided to get rid of slaves. There will be more videos where we talk about the history of the United States and the issues that the country had, because let's be honest, slavery is a horrible practice, a horrible tradition that was used in the United States to help grow the country. And the United States, as we know it today, would not be the same without the slave labor that helped build the country at the beginning. And the slavery that was used and practiced throughout the United States, especially in the southern states, was the cause of an entire civil war, as the northern states wanted the southern states to end the terrible practice of using slaves on their farms and to free those slaves, to give them their freedom, to pay them, to give them the same rights as the rest of the citizens in the United States. Of course, this caused a terrible civil war, but but the result ended up being that the North won and that all the black people in the United States gained their freedom. However, it wasn't immediate. Now, Abraham Lincoln, very, very famous president, the president that we see on the penny, he signed, he signed a he signed a very important document called the Emancipation Proclamation, giving freedom to all the slaves in the United States. However, it wasn't until over 2 years later that slavery officially ended in the final state, Texas. How did it take over 2 years from the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation to the last slaves actually being freed? Well, a few reasons. One, back in the 1800s, transportation was very slow. And as many of you know, the United States is a very, very big country. It's a giant country. And for news to travel all the way from the north to the south took a long time. It took a very long time. The man that delivered the news was a Union general. The Union were the northern states. Gordon Granger. Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, June 19th of 1865 to give the news that all the slaves were freed. As I said, it took a long time because while the Civil War was going on and Texas was part of the southern states, was part of the Confederation, well, it was quite far from where most of the battles took place during the Civil War. And while slavery had already ended technically with the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, well, it was still being practiced until the day that finally we were able to say it was over when Gordon Granger gave the news in Galveston, Texas on this day, which is why people consider Juneteenth of 1865 to be the official ending of slavery and not the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, because for 2 years after it, slavery was still being practiced. So it's impossible to say that slavery had ended in the United States until finally this day. Now, what does this say? That it took so long that the people didn't even know that they were technically freed. One, that freedom for Black people was a fight. It was a very difficult fight that many people fought for and lost their lives over, and it was a very slow process. As we'll talk about in more videos, it's a process that took much, much longer than just 2.5 years because Black people were not granted the same rights as white people immediately. It wasn't a snap and all of a sudden they were equal. No, because ingrained in the culture there was a lot of racism and bigotry against Black people. And it would take a long, long time for this to finally have some sort of conclusion. And even today, we can still see quite a lot of imbalance between white people and Black people in the United States. This imbalance that we see today is why many Black people argue that Juneteenth needs to be celebrated, needs to be taught, and it needs to be respected. It should be a day of reflection. It should be a day to think of the sacrifices that were made and the terrible atrocities that were committed in the United States at the beginning of the country and what happened for decades and decades. It's something that a lot of people, I believe, would rather ignore. Of course, you don't want to sit there and reflect on the horrible things that happened in your country. It doesn't feel good. It's not a good feeling. However, I believe that it's important to do so. The easy thing is to just forget. The easy thing is to pretend that it never happened. But you can't do that. It did happen. And it's real. And because you want to pretend that it didn't, doesn't mean it never happened, because it did. And I agree that it should be a holiday. And I agree that it should be a day of reflection to understand, to realize the importance of it. And yet I didn't even know it was a holiday until I had grown up, because it's not taught about. It's not a federal holiday across the country. That is until Joe Biden in 2021 signed a federal law proclaiming Juneteenth as a national holiday, meaning no work, meaning people were able to celebrate it just like July 4th, Independence Day. However, this angered many people. A lot of people said it's too expensive to add this as a federal holiday, and it's not necessary, and it's not really a holiday. I thought that it was a good move and that it's important that everyone understands what this day is and what it means to America. However, already many states and federal agencies have taken away Juneteenth as a holiday. So there's still a lot of backlash surrounding this topic. What do you think? Do you think Juneteenth should be a federal holiday like me? Or do you think that it doesn't need to be a federal holiday? Tell me, put it in the comments below. I think at the very least it needs to be a day that's spoken about and taught in school so people understand the importance and the significance and the struggle that was lived by many, many people for many, many years. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone that's learning about American culture just like you. And we'll see each other in the next video. Bye.